Greetings YouTube, welcome to my latest weapons build. I'm going to build something inspired by a drawing I saw online, and I can't remember if I saw it on Instagram or on Tumblr or something, but I follow a number of people on Instagram that do different kinds of post-apocalyptic themed stuff, as well as just general sketching and artistry. So I'm not sure where I picked it up, but it was a picture of a person holding a two-handed weapon, and it had used a pair of scissors to create essentially a double pick. So they had mounted one portion of the scissors here and one portion of the scissors here, so you had 2 points going that way. And so that's what I'm going to do with this one. Now this is a pair of Clauss C-L-A-U-S-S scissors, number 3752, made in the USA, but they're not in good shape. You can see the ends. They over travel now. They're bent. I don't know what happened to these things. I picked them up at an estate sale for a song. But they're definitely not in top condition. I have shears of this size upstairs in my apartment that are in actually good quality condition, and I use them on occasion. But these things have been beat, and they are well past their use as scissors. So I'm going to disassemble them, and I need to figure out what size hole this is. And if it isn't a 1/4 inch, I may open that up to a 1/4 inch. So that may be a bit of a pain because this is going to be hardened steel. We'll see if I can pull that off or not. I guess if all else fails, I could grind the hole out, which is very tedious, but we'll see what happens. And I'm going to create 2 notches, rectangular, and I'm going to put a through hole on the other side. That will be the pin. Now I don't know if that's going to give me enough security, because it'll keep it from moving. It'll keep the units from moving this way, because the pin will do that. But I don't want any slop, or I want as little slop as possible. So I'm going to try to make the slots as tight as possible, so essentially I'm tapping them in place. But even if after that I'm not 100% sure I'm going to get as much grip as I want. Now if I don't get as much as I want, what I'm thinking of doing is putting a slot down here. I'll put a hole through here to act as a stop. Put a slot in there, and then put a 3rd fastener here, so when all 3 of the fasteners will then pinch this upper section of the shaft onto the scissors sections, because they will be separated at that point. I'm not sure if it's going to be necessary. I'm going to find out when I get around to that stage. I'm going to have to actually cut the holes, the rectangular holes, once I figure out what size I need, and then put them in. And then I'm going to, after that's all done, I'm going to taper this section, make it octagonal, both to make it more comfortable and to reduce the diameter a little bit. Also, I like the octagonal vibe, and I'll be using a hand plane for that particular reason. This particular purpose, I think I may actually have to sharpen that before I get around to doing that. So the first thing I need to do is make sure I get these in the right orientation, because I'm going to want them to be going in that orientation. I think that's the orientation I want. I want this. I'm going to keep this here because I like this. We need no reason not to, but I'm going to keep it like that. So I'm going to want to come in, and once I get the size, drill the probably two holes and clean it up with the chisel to get a rectangular hole. Though I don't know what size I'm going to need yet. That first part is take these apart, disassemble these, and then take some measurements so I know what size holes I need to drill. And once I get that all set up, I will show you how it looks, and then we're going to see if it is going to need to be pinched, or can I just live with them be pressure fit and then held in place with a pin going crosswise. So I've done a little layout, and I'm going to put them in this orientation. Now this is the side that has the threads, and this is the fastener that came with the scissors themselves. So what I'm thinking of doing is I only have to drill a partial hole through this one, and then I can just open this up so that there's a shoulder, and this will sit on that shoulder, and then I can have this pin it in place, and that will very much be as tight as I can get it. And if I make this hole for the head just big enough to handle that size, the whole thing will very much be snug. This is going to be a little sloppier because that is that's a 1/4 inch, and it's got a little bit of play on there, but it's not too bad. So and this is 1/4 inch wide. So I think where I'm going to be able to get the snugness is making sure that this width is where I get the tight aspect. It's just like a couple of over 800 thousandths of an inch wide on both of them. So if I can put in 2 holes and make sure that those 2 holes are 800 thou on the outside edge, because they'll be round and not square, because I'm going to drill bit obviously is round, that should give me the snugness I need. Tap it in place, and in this case just put this through part of the way, screw it in place. Now this one I'm going to see if I can set it into the shaft itself, because this, if I set that so that the head is just flush with the outside and I can set the nut flush with this side, I should be able to make this whole thing disappear inside the shaft itself, which would look nice and sleek. This one will be easy. I can just use a 1/2 inch bit to open up that big enough to get that head for a space for the head. This one I'm going to have to go 3/8, and then I may have to do a little bit of work with a utility knife just to take kind of corners out, because I really want to press that into that hole to get this as snug as possible, so that essentially it's going to be a permanent fastener for the other one to screw into, and then the whole thing will come together. I can either use my vise here, or actually I have a bearing press I could use for that purpose as well, if seeing which is easier to use. The bearing press may be the simplest means, because that way I could have this thing lying flat and I can just put that straight down like that, because if I use my vise, you kind of have to manipulate things and holding them together. Having gravity work in your favor is a major bonus. And these are approximately 3 inches wide apart at the moment, and I'm going to set them down 3 inches. I kind of like that spacing. I'll probably also knock the corners off this to give that a little bit more of a finished look. Just put some chamfers on there. So let's get the chamfers on there. Let's start doing some layout. Actually, do the layout first. Chamfers can wait. Do the layout so I can figure out where these cross holes are going to be, because the cross holes are going to be where the bolts go. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud, trying to figure out which would be the best thing to do first. Because it's going to be kind of everything's got to kind of come together at the right way, you know what I mean? Alright. More thinking. Next time, hopefully, they'll be drilling. I know those of you who have watched my videos in the past are going to be shocked by this, but things didn't come out quite the way I wanted to. I didn't get this one wide enough, and by the time I did, I couldn't make the kind of adjustment I needed to. This one, you know, this is much narrower and much more controlled looking, much more organized. That one came out the way I wanted it to. This one didn't. I had the 2 holes that I initially drew too close together, so I had to use like a file. And in fact, I glued together. I just put a file in my drill and I just started reaming it in there, because that was faster than trying to do it by hand. And now I've got to the point where I think if I just tap it in place, I can get it to go. But I didn't do that, because once I tap it in place, it's not coming back out again. So this is all set, and I've already placed the nut in position, so it's all set to go. So all I have to do is hopefully thread that in there with the screwdriver, and then we're going to be good. But before I get to that stage, before I get to the final assembly stage, now I need to put the taper on this thing, because I can't do the taper with stuff installed, and once it gets installed, it's not coming back out again. So now it's time for me to get the taper on there, so I get this to be octagonal, and once that's done, then I'm going to try to get this to come together and hopefully not split the wood. That's my big concern, split the wood. We're going to see what happens. If I start to get that happening, I'm going to have to back off. This one's going to fit nice. So I'll do that one first, see if it comes out, and then if that one starts giving me hassles, I can stop, pull it out, start working on it some more until I can get it to go in there without splitting. This one is all ready to go. Yeah, what I did is that I had the two holes 150 thou too far from the ends, so this thing ended up being 300,000 too narrow. So I set the holes at 150 thou from a center point when it should have been 300 thou from the center point. That's what this is. That's what that should have been. That's my mistake. But I'm not great at maths, as my friend Jan can tell you. And here we have the completed piece. Now, I can say with absolute honesty, the top of this thing ended up just the way I wanted it to. That top blade is exactly where I want it. It came out beautifully. It is rock solid. The nut I placed in there worked perfectly. Absolutely happy with that. Bottom one, not so much. Looks great from that side, doesn't it? Doesn't even look bad from that side now, does it? Well, they're not lined up the way I wanted to. And there's a reason for that. And that is that I forgot that that fastener will only fit into the scissors from the flat side. The scissors are not a nut. The scissors are a pair of scissors. And I kept thinking of them as a nut, just a threaded hole, and I was going to fit a threaded rod into the threaded hole, you know. It's simple. It's a fastener. It's a nut. I know how to work with fasteners and nuts. I proved it right there. I know how to work with fasteners and nuts. But that arm of the scissors is not a nut, and it will only fit if the fastener comes in on the flat. So they ended up being, I had to reverse them by 180 degrees. So that was this flat section here was supposed to be facing down, and the bow here was supposed to be facing up. But I couldn't do that because I had this hole in the wrong side. If I had been paying attention, I would have had that hole on this side, and then it would have worked. But I didn't do that. So I screwed myself on that. What a shock. And it wouldn't, when I finally got it in place, I didn't have the level of security that I wanted. So, I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to see if I can get this to an angle you can. I think you can see it. There is a steel wedge inside this unit that I have pounded very securely into place. And it is in there, and it's not coming through because it's not a very long wedge, but it's a thick wedge. But I didn't make it very long so that I could try to get it inside the shaft and have it stay inside the shaft so it wasn't visible. But that is what's causing this limb here, this arm of the scissors to be secure. This one doesn't move because I did it correctly. This doesn't move because I made it work by getting that little wedge in there. Yeah. This is nicely tapered. I'm quite happy with this. You end up with an octagonal grip, which I happen to like. And that didn't come out quite the way I wanted to. Because of that, these limbs are not perfectly pointed in exactly the same direction, but part of that is because scissors themselves have a slight curve to them. They're supposed to. So getting them to come exactly in line with each other is going to be difficult under the best of circumstances. However, if you come out, but that's definitely still going to hit the same target when you swing it. There's no way around, no question about that. But I am happy with the overall build. This looks like a very simple design, which is exactly what I was going for, even if some of the internal layout was complex. And it looks like something that could be cobbled together by somebody in the wasteland, which is again the goal here. This is I've got a pair of scissors. I want to make them more dangerous than just a pair of scissors, because while you can use them as daggers, that doesn't have the same impact or the same range as turning it into a two-handed pick. And that's essentially what this is. This is a double-pointed pick. And I'm going to call this the tailor's pick because these are big-ass scissors that would be normally used by someone working with fabric. So I'm going to call them the tailor's scissors, which I think has a better ring to it than like the seamstress's pick. The tailor's pick sounds better than the seamstress's pick. So, kind of happy with it. Kind of not. Happy with this, not happy with that. That, you know, sometimes that's how the build works. Alrighty, so now I'm going to take some still shots outside for both this video and for my DeviantArt page. And if you don't follow me on DeviantArt, you should. That's my permanent home of the stills of my builds. And you should also follow me on Instagram, which is where I post bargains and I post sneak previews and scrap I find, as well as cute cat pictures. And who doesn't want more cute cat pictures in their life? So, hope you enjoyed yourself, and I hope you come back for the next one.